These are devotions for people at a social distance. Today, in my devotions, I was thinking about one of the really important, really key themes in the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew begins, as everyone remembers, with this incredible story of the conception of Jesus, and it starts with this incredible promise. When it talks about the child who's going to be born, Joseph, his father, receives this message that this child shall be called Emmanuel, which the gospel writer helpfully explains means God with us. So it opens with this promise that God will be with us, and specifically, of course, that God will be with us in this person of Jesus who's about to be born. And then, as you may recall, the very last verse of the entire gospel, also a pretty famous one, goes like this: "And surely I will be with you always until the close of the age." And that is, of course, a promise of Jesus, the final closing words of the gospel. So through and through, beginning to end, this gospel is giving a message that Jesus is here with us. Not someday, not in heaven someday. God is with us in Jesus right now. That is a central promise, a wonderful promise indeed, of this Gospel of Matthew. But remember that this Gospel was also written for a church, for real life Christians who, guess what, just like us today, probably still often struggled with not feeling, not seeing that presence of Jesus with them. And maybe as he was writing this gospel, these Christians would come to him and say, "But Matthew, I don't get this sense that Jesus is with us. Why don't I feel him? Why don't I see him? I need that presence. Why don't I feel it?" And I had this thought today that there's this incredible parable that Matthew includes in his gospel in chapter 25. And maybe that's why he included it. Chapter 5, starting at verse 31, he tells this incredible parable about the sheep and the goats. And I know we often read this parable and we think it's about, who gets into heaven, who doesn't. The sheep get into heaven, the goats don't. I am not sure that that's what this parable is about. I think this parable is actually about Matthew offering an answer to all of those people, sheep and goats alike perhaps, who were saying, "Hey, where's this presence of Jesus you promised us?" Verse 44, "Then they, the goats, also will answer to the Lord, 'Lord, when was it we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?' Then he will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to me, to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me.'" What is that saying? That is Jesus speaking to the church and saying, I'm here. I'm here with you right now in the middle of this world. But guess what? You've been looking for me in the wrong places. Think I'm going to be constantly in glory or in the clouds or in some unmistakable way and sign? No. I'm right here in the face of that person who doesn't have enough to eat, who doesn't have decent clothes to wear, who has been thrown into prison, who is a captive or a slave in some way. I'm right there. And if you want to know my presence, you want to feel that presence, you need to reach out to that person you see is struggling with these things, and you will find me. That's the promise. Yes, Jesus is with us, but not necessarily where we're thinking of looking. And that gives us a huge challenge because we're living in a society right now where a lot of people are struggling. How can we meet Jesus? By responding to that. Lord our God, help us to be the kind of sheep that you spoke to in that parable. Amen.